Hey everybody, Nick here, and today I'm going to do something that terrifies me. I'm going to go ahead and take this knife apart. This is the CRKT XOC, which is using their Deadbolt lock. So the way that this works is there's this little thing that pushes out here, and then there's flip a tab, makes everything drop. I'm really curious to take this thing apart, but I'm also quite scared because this has a number of screws. Oh my god, does this thing have screws. Huh, I just noticed one of the screws is actually missing. That's hilarious. Like, before I even started this screw is not put in there. Well, that's kind of cool, right? I'll contact them about that. But nevertheless, yeah. So, let's go on ahead and get started here and try something that terrifies me. So, step number one here, I believe, is going to be to pop off these screws here. There is a great deal of T6itude going on. What I'm actually going to do is maybe a little unusual for me, but I'm going to try and kind of keep these screws here separated. Is this going to pop loose without the... Okay, good. So that popped loose. What the heck is that? I bet this is your detent. Yeah, that's the detent right there. And whatever this little bar here is, that's giving us the detent for the knife. Okay, so now we can take this, and I'll set those off to the side there. That way I keep those screws in order. Oh, God, I might have to take that apart, too. I hope not. All right, next step is probably going to be to pop this out. Because I'm right now... I could either take these guys out, because I'm going to have to take off this carbon fiber to get access to this screw, and this screw to get this the rest of the way apart. Let me pop off the pivot here, or at least do my best to. And we'll kind of take it from there. I'm thinking T8. Yes, T8. Okay. Is that unscrewing? Okay, this is unscrewing directly from underneath here. So that means there's a spring. Okay, now I'm getting it. This screws into the bottom here, so that drops out loose there. This spring is what provides the counterforce that makes the knife lock up. Then there's a separate pivot inside there, which is right here. And then when the knife closes, the deadbolty guy lands, it pushes down into here. I see how this works. Okay. And so then when the knife closes, this falls down into position. Then when it opens, it comes back out of position. Okay, and they do the detent via this little extra bar right here. All right, so now we have a blade that is free roaming. That's not great. Probably should have pulled these guys first, but that's okay. My goal here is going to be to pop these out. And again, I'm going to try and keep everything separated. They forgot a screw. I just noticed that. Nice. And I'm kind of laying these guys out off camera just so I kind of know exactly what ordering they went in. Oh, actually, that works well, too. Let's go ahead and put that in there. So now we have all of this. This lifts off. Okay, this isn't so bad after all. Yeah, okay, there's the detent. Because this little piece of spring-itude here has a little ball at the end. Hopefully that ball is not loose. Now what I should be able to do here is pop this out. This is actually not turning out to be nearly as scary as I thought it was going to be. Oh, the missing screw. All right. Let's go ahead and lift this titanium bit off here. Come in. Just got to convince this loose. It appears to be hung up on the pivot by a little bit of Loctite there. Come in. There should be no... You can see that the detent on this is actually quite hard. This flips without locking, even without the deadbolt. So the deadbolt lock itself has no actual detent strength to it. The detent all comes from this secondary lock bar. Okay, I can dig it. Or at least I can try to. Wait a second, hold on. I'm wondering whether this actually screws into this titanium liner here. That is not implausible. So if that's the case, then I need a large flathead driver. Yeah, is this, yeah, that'll do. So I want a large flathead driver. I'll swap it into one of my screwdrivers here. Yeah, actually, that's a good bet. So then I'll turn this. Come on. And if this wants to rotate, maybe it doesn't. What I'm going to try and do here is use just a little bit more. Wow. I'm really reluctant to use too much torque here. I'm going to go ahead and use this handle here that gives me just a little bit more purchase on this guy. And then hopefully... Okay, it was just... Yes, this does unscrew. So I need to unscrew the pivot here. Okay, good. So this is why I always talk about not wanting to use too much in the way of force. Because if I had just tried to pry that apart, I just would have broken the knife. I would have stripped out this side here, and it wouldn't have gone back together right. So now what I should be able to do is, ideally, lift this whole scale off. Okay, and we are now apart. Beautiful. All right. All 15 pounds of this knife are disassembled. Okay. That wasn't nearly as bad as I'd expected. Whoa. Look at the freaking milling in the blade here. This is a whole different world. But what we can see here is how this deadbolt lock works. When this seats itself, it just locks itself in there from this angle here. And then when it lifts back up, the whole thing is allowed to rotate. And it pops down to here. But then otherwise, yeah, it drops in. Nice. I'm sure I've got the geometry all wrong here, but luckily getting that geometry right is not my job. That is theirs. All right, let's go ahead and clean this off. Oh, I need to buy more of these swatches. Okay, back at the ranch. This is very interesting. It's nice to see something completely different. At some level, so often I am disassembling yet another titanium flipper frame lock with the exact same locking mechanism as every other one, and same factory, damn near. This is different in pretty much every way. Whether it's a good different or a bad different remains to be sort of experienced. Will take me some holy Threadlocker, Batman. Look at the amount of freaking threadlock they put on this guy. Yeah, whatever. I'll just threadlock it myself as well. Pop that loose. This is different. This is very different. There is nothing else I have ever handled that is remotely like this knife. I mean, I don't, like I said, have a great sense of whether that's a good thing or a bad thing yet, but at the very least, it is a different knife. And so I support that. I like that idea. I'm always willing to support craziness. So, yeah. I'm going to go ahead and just, I'm kind of guessing as to the best places to lubricate here, but I'll get a better sense of it over time. I'm going ahead and I'm lubricating the pivot. I'm also going to lubricate the bearings, which, by the way, little bearings for a big old knife here. I mean, they're not tiny. It doesn't really matter, practically speaking, but, yeah. These aren't, you know, gigantic bearings. Could hold up a space shuttle or something like that. Nope, that's not what's going on here. Okay. Now, how the heck do I put this thing back together? So, I'm going to start off by dropping that onto there. Then I am going to take a Q-tip, soak up some of the booze here, slide it around in there. I'm using some knife pivot lube here, and if you're ever curious about any of the tools I'm using for this disassembly, go on ahead and check my knife disassembly toolkit video, where you will see all this and more. Okay. Interesting. This pivot construction is very strange. I wonder what set of design constraints made that happen. All right, I'm going to go ahead and lubricate there. Now what we can do is start the reassembly process. There's a little bit of a... Okay. So what I need to do here is actually flip this over as it stands. Because first off, I need to get these seated down here. They're shouldered, so that missing screw doesn't actually hurt us too bad. And now what oh crap, I need to Loctite this. Damn. Alright. How do I Loctite this? I am really close to the bearings while thread locking this. What I'm actually going to do then is apply, I'm using the liquid thread locker, which I haven't done in a while. But I'll go ahead and I'm going to apply it directly to the thread rather than to the screw itself. That way I shouldn't contact the bearings particularly. I gotta flip this whole thing over here in a cautious way because the blade is loose. Okay, slide that into position. Now we put this back into place. Okay. Come on. Work with me. There we are. Now what I should be able to do is twist. Well, at the very least, I'm now seated so I can let up some of the pressure. So actually, at this point, I guess I'm tuning the pivot tension in this state here. Oh, because it's being centered by the pivot tension here. Okay, yeah. So I'm tuning the pivot here. This is a more experienced... I'm very glad that I've done this more often than most. Right now there is a fair amount of blade play there, so I'm going to tighten this further. Okay, now that's fully tight. No play. I bet, though, it's a little off-center now. But then again, the screws aren't... Let me try loosening this just a tad. God, this is weird. Little tiny bit of play. Okay, so I got to have this fully tightened down. But right now, interesting. The centering isn't... that's too tight. Let me loosen that back up a bit. There we go. Now we are back on center. No play. Can I go a little looser, maybe? Just a hair. Okay. Now I need to re-screw these ones here. Those are T6. By the way, T6 on this knife is not necessarily how I was hoping the universe would go. I mean, come on. Tighten this down a little bit here. Go ahead and do the same thing over here. Only 13 minutes in. That's not so bad. There's that. Okay. So now, I feel like something's a little off here because the centering is also a little off. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to throw this bit at myself because this damn driver unfortunately does not have any kind of retention to it. I'm going to loosen this up substantially. Okay. Now that this is loosened substantially, I'm going to shove something in there. Come here, something. What am I shoving in here? I need a shovable. What are you? You are a Costco receipt. No, that's not going to be the best choice. Sorry about this, folks. I don't often think about shovables. Here, we'll use this. It's a small piece of leather. So what I've done here is I'm just using this leather to kind of push the blade to one side as I tighten this. So I'll go ahead and tighten this down. The downside to doing this... Whoa, okay. That's now the other direction. So that's not what I wanted at all. The downside to doing what I'm doing here is that I am completely unfamiliar with the proper process to assemble and disassemble this particular kind of lock. It's the nature of the beast, I suppose, but yeah. Am I weirdly threaded here? I'm going to try this. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and retwist and try and pull this back together here. And there we go. That is too loose, so let's tighten. That is tighter. Okay. So what's going on here? There is something strange. Actually, there are a bunch of other moving parts that aren't in place yet that could center this guy back up. And the centering ain't so bad after all. So I'm going to go ahead and give this a shot again. And actually, I'm trying to remember what the centering was like ahead of time. Well, we're going to go on ahead and continue the process here. Let's do this. I'm going to apply some Threadlocker to each one of these screws. And just a little bit here. This is blue Loctite 242, not the red stuff. Red stuff is just not good for pocket knife use, generally speaking. Tighten this down. Tighten this down. Tighten this down. And we tighten this down. Okay. Now we're going to reassemble the lock mechanism. So this goes in here. I'm going to go ahead. Whoa there. I'm going to go ahead and lubricate the outside of this thing. I don't know that I believe this is necessary, but it sure can't hurt anything, right? Well, he says not knowing a damn thing. Go ahead and put that in there. All right, now I'm going to drop this back into position. And now when I pop this open, there we go. That locks down. All right. Now the next step here is going to be to apply Threadlocker to this guy. Oh, boy. This is like the final exam of knife disassemblies. Here's hoping I pass. Okay. Let's go ahead and tighten this down. Okay, there's that. That is locked down. Oh, okay, that's fine. That little bit just goes on underneath that metal plate. Okay, let's put this thing back together here and finish things off. I will have to check the footage to see if this guy started off centered. If not, I won't hold that against him. In all likelihood, maybe what happened here is that the one of the bearings is slightly differently sized than the other one. And so by swapping the bearings unintentionally, I may have changed that around. I don't know. We will see. I'll go ahead and pop that in there. Here we go. Here is this. I will thread lock this. God, this thing's weird. Like, I wonder what instructions they gave Flavio Icoma when they were building this. Just like, you know what? Do something weird. He was like, yep, I got you, fam. Whatever the Brazilian Portuguese equivalent of fam is. I don't know. Either way. Oh. Well, there is zero blade play, any dimension, rock freaking solid. Actually, the centering appears to be a little better too. Look, I'm impressed. It's a weird, weird system. Oh my God, is this weird. That was a non-trivial disassembly, but you know what? Nice. I have to say, I at the very least, I respect this thing. Whether it's a knife I would actually ever want to carry, I'm going to stay open on that particular matter until I've spent more time. However, at the very, very least, I respect it. And keep an eye out for my full review, which will no doubt be heading down the road very shortly after you watch this video. So there you go. Hope this has been interesting to you. Have yourselves an absolutely wonderful rest of your day. Bye now.